I watched the Minecraft movie and I loved it. Despite what others might say, I really enjoyed the movie. I've been playing Minecraft since 2012. That's 13 years. I started off on the Xbox 360 and I've played Xbox, mobile, and PC. I love Minecraft. I've played creative, survival, hardcore, modded, servers, and so much more. This game holds a very special place in my heart, so I was so excited to see the Minecraft movie releasing in theaters, and I just had to go watch it. So I got on my light blue t-shirt, jeans, and diamond sword and headed down to my local AMC. I'm not kidding, I actually wore that. For those of you that haven't seen the movie yet, this is your spoiler warning. Go out, watch the movie, then come back to finish this video. So, the basic plot of the movie is a little kid named Steve who yearned for the mines. He's scared away by a grumpy old guy and then goes to live a boring life with an office job. But he always wanted something more, a way for him to express himself creatively and live his own life. So, he goes back to the mines, breaks the immortally aging old guy's ankles, and mines until he finds a rare block. This is the Orb of Dominance, and he places it into an earth crystal, which makes a portal that brings him to the overworld. Now, he's in Minecraft. Here, Steve explores this new world and builds all sorts of fun creations, including an amusement park, which we can hopefully get someday, or at least a ride or something. Maybe? Anyways, one day he stumbles across one of the nether portal structures and uses the flint and steel he finds in the chest to light the portal. The portal leads him to a bastion. Can we just take a second to talk about how ridiculously RNG carried he is here though? First, the portal doesn't have any crying obsidian, the chest has the missing obsidian block he needs, and he's got the flint and steel to light it. Then, after all of that, the portal leads him straight to a bastion. Someone accused this man of cheating in his speedruns. Anyways, in the bastion, he meets a bunch of piglins and the evil piglin sorceress Malgosia. When she was a kid, she did a really cool dance at Nether's Got Talent, but everybody laughed at her, probably because her backstory wasn't emotional and tragic enough. Her dad says that dancing is a waste of time and she should just go find gold. So, she spites all creativity and imagination from that point on. In the present, she takes the orb to use for her evil plan to conquer the overworld, then locks Steve and his dog Dennis in jail. They escape and steal the orb back, but Steve gives the orb to his dog so that the dog can escape, despite the fact that they could both easily have run to the portal in time. But anyways, Steve gets captured, Dennis escapes to the overworld, closes the portal that connects the Minecraft world and the real world, and hides the orb under Steve's bed, which definitely didn't look like a water mattress because most of them go all the way down to the floor, but whatever, I'm suspending my disbelief. So, years pass and we go to a guy named Garrett, the Garbage Man Garrison, who got stuck in his glory days for being the 1989 Gamer of the Year, winning an arcade game tournament. Now, he runs a corner store selling vintage games called The Game Over Store, which is just an inspiring name that truly is a good marketing strategy. And here, he faces one of the greatest motivations for any amazing hero, an eviction notice. So, he goes to a storage auction and tries to get some money, and he's in luck. There's a really rare Atari game console in the unit, so he spends $950 on it, but oh no, the box is empty. It just contains some garbage and the Orb of Dominance and Earth Crystal. Then, we cut to two siblings, Natalie and Henry, moving to this random town in Idaho because their mom died and they needed a cheap place to live. So Natalie gets a job as a social media manager for a potato chip company, which is the only company that exists in stereotypical Idaho, aside from the potato farmers. So, on his first day of school, Henry gets bullied in his art class for wanting to put a rocket on a banana. Sure, I guess. So, he decides to build an actual jetpack all in one day. Seriously, this 14-year-old kid is doing advanced calculus and physics in his notebook, which is just insane. Then, some bullies sabotage his jetpack and, they accidentally commit an act of domestic terrorism and destroy the big potato and the roof of the potato factory. But there are no punishments for him. Anyways, he goes to the video game store to meet Garrett, where Henry asks about the cube, promptly ignores the warning and decides to put the orb into the crystal, and it leads him to the cave with the portal to the overworld. So now we've got Henry, Natalie, Garrett, and Dawn, who's a real estate agent that really wants to start a petting zoo. Anyways, they're all in Minecraft now. So the evil piglin ruler Malgosia gets some magical message that the orb is back, so she brings Steve out of prison to go fetch the orb, because piglins can't go into the overworld without becoming zombified. Steve is about to kill her, but then she shows him the collar of his dog Dennis, which fell off when he was running away, so Steve thinks that the piglins have Dennis and agrees to go fetch the orb. So we cut back to the gang just playing and messing around, but then it turns night. They're attacked by skeletons, spiders, zombies, creepers, and Henry figures out that he can break trees with his bare hands to build a little wooden tower. A creeper blows it up and the zombies attack. The gang is nearly overrun until Steve shows up and fights all the zombies. It turns to day and the zombies burn. But oh no, during all the fighting, Garrett accidentally broke the earth crystal and now they can't return back to the overworld. So now they make a deal with Steve to give him the orb if he helps them get a new earth crystal and go home. So they give the orb back to Henry because he's got Frodo energy, which I thought was just a pretty neat reference because of how similar they look. So Steve takes them to a village where they're able to get some supplies and Steve's lava chicken. But oh no, Malgosia had some spies and thinks that Steve's secretly betraying her. So she sends an army of piglins into the overworld to go unalive them all and bring back the orb. Now, some astute observers might be really confused right now. Wait, but if you said earlier that piglins would become zombified if they go to the overworld, how are they going to survive? Well, it turns out if they drink netherwort, then they'll be totally fine going into the overworld. Suspending my disbelief. I am suspending my disbelief. So they attack the village. Natalie feels really bad for something she said to her brother, and the gang splits up, so Natalie and Dawn run away trying to find a map to the Woodland Mansion where they can get a new earth crystal, and Henry, Garrett, and Steve go through an epic flying chase scene where they try to escape the gas and piglins flying after them. Garrett and Steve make an interesting position to squeeze through a narrow hole. They MLG water bucket clutch and then head through the redstone mines to go and get to the Woodland Mansion. And surprise, Garrett actually stole the orb from Henry so that he could get some riches so that he doesn't go bankrupt. So he secretly tells Steve that he better get some riches if Steve wants the orb, so they go into the redstone mines and get some diamonds from Steve's secret stash. And uh-oh, Henry feels double-crossed. But there's no time for that. They get attacked by the Great Hog, which is some really big, scary prototype piglin that was made to kill them, not to be confused with what all the people at my college call me. So they jump into some minecarts, but take a wrong turn and find themselves in Steve's creeper farm, which is not at all optimal because it's in a large open area without a fully mined set of chunks and isn't even using trapdoors. So they escape and blow up the Great Hog. Garrett reveals that he secretly stole the Orb of Dominance, which, come on Henry, you're given a super powerful key item that you need to return home, and not once along the entire journey do you check to make sure that it's still in your inventory. Henry expresses his frustration and says that him and Garrett aren't friends anymore, so yikes. But meanwhile, Natalie and Dawn are having a heart-to-heart conversation about how Natalie still wants to be a kid and doesn't feel like she's ready to be an adult or a parent yet. Dawn tames a dog which has the name Dennis, and she's like, wait, is this Steve's Dennis? So then the dog is going to lead them to Steve with its super scent, and probably also a secret tracker, because from the distance that Steve traveled in the flying chase, the minecart escape, and beyond, there's no way that a dog can smell from that far. Okay, I stand corrected, but this dog is definitely not a basset hound, so who knows. Anyways, Henry, Garrett, and Steve are at the Woodland Mansion where they form a plan to get the Earth Crystal. Garrett and Steve are going to play the saxophone while Henry is going to sneak past and get the crystal. Suspending my disbelief, suspending my disbelief, suspending my disbelief. So, Henry goes into a treasure room where he finds the Earth Crystal, but also gets psychologically tortured by looking into an Enderman's eyes. Which, dang, that's pretty crazy. But to be honest though, I feel like any kid who looks straight into an Enderman's eyes for the first time is just as scared. So Henry kills the Enderman and gets an Ender Pearl. Steve and Garrett are forced to fight a
chicken jockey.
It's actually really cool because they used a niche room in the Woodland Mansions where people were pretty confused because it looked kind of like a fighting ring, but there's no reference in the game to it actually ever being used. After that, the three of them escape, but they're met by more piglins and gassed with TNT that plan to blow up the bridge, so Garrett makes a heroic sacrifice to blow himself up while Henry and Steve escape on a ghast which crashes into the ground. But oh no, Malgosha stole back the Orb of Dominance and plans to block out the sky so that piglins can conquer the overworld without becoming zombified. Steve and Henry wake up where they're nursed back to health by Natalie and Dawn, and then Natalie and Henry make up, and then they all prepare to fight off the piglin invasion. They smelt a bunch of iron, make a ton of golems to defend the village, but instead of using a pumpkin, Henry puts these boots of swiftness on one of the golems, which surprisingly is an item in Minecraft Dungeons, so that was quite the reference. I mean, the golem should look like this now, but it's whatever. So they have an epic final showdown, golems versus piglins, and Henry pearls to the top of this gigantic portal to try and take back the orb and stop the eternal darkness. But another great hog shoots a cannon blaster at him and knocks him off the portal, where Henry falls to his death. But he's saved by Garrett riding a ghast. Surprise, Garrett lived by doing a water bucket clutch like Steve did. So they get the orb, restore the world, and all the piglins become zombified. So the heroes save the day and go back to their homes in the real world, except Steve, who stays in Minecraft, but gives his dog Dennis to Dawn. Then we get a where they all are now moment, where Garrett and Henry now run the video game store, Natalie starts her own self-defense class, and Dawn finally opens up a real petting zoo with Dennis and a bunch of other animals. Then we get a happy dance scene where we find out that Steve decided to finally rejoin the real world and express his creativity with the world. So what are my thoughts? Well, I found the story to be really interesting. At its core, the Minecraft movie is about how we should always stay true to ourselves and never lose our creativity and imagination. I believe that this is truly what Minecraft is about. Sure, there's technically a story to the game, and I know many fans are upset that the main goal of the story isn't beating the Ender Dragon. But there's so much more to Minecraft than just that. Also, if they slay the Ender Dragon already, then how are we supposed to get the Minecraft movie 2 with Alex? Or however many more sequels will come out after that, because who knows. So for the actual plot and story, the team is trying to find the Earth Crystal to go back home and avoid the piglins that are trying to steal the Orb of Dominance. And it works really well. It keeps the plot moving, and there's genuine suspense, drama, and conflicts between characters. Not to mention the incredibly funny side plot of Henry's principal, Jennifer Coolidge, falling in love with a nitwit that crossed into the overworld. There are only a few short scenes of this, but it is hilarious. See, this is how you have different characters with funny breaks in a movie and cutaway gags that are actually good. Take notes, Disney. Also, I feel as though every character is written with backstories that define who the characters are. It makes sense why Malgosha hates creativity because she was ridiculed as a child. It makes sense why Steve agrees to help her because he's being tricked and he just wants his dog back. Henry just really wants to fit in and have a place where his creative and innovative ideas can be expressed freely. Natalie wants to be a good guardian for her brother and do anything she can to protect him because their mom can't. It's a really impactful scene where Natalie's just holding the vase that her mom gave her, and another scene where Henry's just holding the photo of the three of them. Of course, we as the audience don't have a strong connection to this character because their mom isn't an actual character in the movie, but I think it's really clever with what they do to try and add depth. Garrett is an egotistical character who got stuck in the glory days and struggled to move on. His arrogance and hubris cause him to be an annoying character at times, but it can also be pretty funny, like his jokes and how he pretends to speak Spanish. There's a hilarious scene where Dawn says something along the lines of, now he's not even speaking either English or Spanish correctly. When Garrett makes his noble sacrifice on the bridge, it does feel a little bit forced, but it makes sense because he's probably scared to jump on the slime block and realizes that he's hurt probably the only person who ever considered him a real friend and just wants to make up for it. Dawn is an example of someone who wants to chase their dreams, but unfortunately struggles with not having the money to do so. She has to have a job that can pay a livable wage, but she tries to fulfill her hobby by having a petting zoo from her car. This shows in her affinity with animals, and it makes sense how she knows to give the wolf a bone to tame it. Now, let's talk about the graphics. The graphics for this movie were phenomenal. It mixes a 3D realistic style with Minecraft's textures. It looked absolutely amazing. All the CGI, SFX, and other editing were done incredibly. It all felt so real, with just that touch of the classic Minecraft look. Speaking of real, let's talk about the 3D experience. I saw the movie in 3D, and it was alright. I saw the Mufasa movie in 3D as well, but I didn't feel like it really added to the experience. There were a couple of awkward shots in the movie where the character just stands uncomfortably close to the camera so that they can get that 3D effect, but it didn't enhance most of the movie as a whole. I feel like this is similar to the Minecraft movie where most of the shots don't really change, but there's a few neat ones where a bee pops out of the camera and comes flying at you, or the time there are the arrows, which I obviously dodged sitting in my seat. I know I made a couple of comparisons to Mufasa, but it's the only other movie that I've seen in theaters recently, and although I think it was okay, I do feel like Disney messed up a lot of stuff with that movie. If you want me to do a review of that movie as well, then I'm a huge Lion King fan, and I would happily do one. Anyways, I feel like 3D doesn't really enhance the movies that I've seen very well, but I think it makes sense when not everyone's going to see these movies in theaters, so they don't bother putting too much effort into the full 3D effects for the entire movie. Now, let's talk about the theater experience. So, my theater was pretty full, and I noticed two types of people going to watch the movie. There were parents with their children between the ages of 5 and 12, and teens between the ages of 15 through 19 going in groups to see the movie. Throughout the movie, there were different parts where there were huge audience reactions. I remember people would go crazy when Steve said stuff like Flint and Steel or Chicken Jockey. I was also surprised when there was full applause after the Chicken Jockey thing, which just felt kind of weird, but I guess I understand the meme. I remember there was one more time when there was applause. I can't really remember though. I think it was when Steve went to Minecraft for the first time, but I don't really remember. There was also this kid sitting next to me who I think was probably like 7 years old and would point out all the new things that showed up in the movie, probably trying to explain to his mom what all of the mobs were. Like, that's a creeper. It's a spider jockey. Those are ghasts, which is just so cute. After the movie, because I was dressed up as Steve, he showed me this little Minecraft bee keychain he had, and I said, that's pretty cool. But I was thinking about it on the drive home, and I kind of wish I gave him the little Steve figurine I brought with me. So if you're watching this, kid, thank you for being one of the few people who acknowledged the techno reference. Speaking of which, let's talk about some of the references. I was so happy to see a pig wearing a crown when they first go to the village, and Steve says a few words to acknowledge him, and he's a legend, which just feels so powerful. I didn't notice any other YouTubers, but apparently some appeared in the movie and also weren't in the credits for some reason, but I couldn't really find where they were. So if you guys could let me know when they appeared, then I'd greatly appreciate it. How about the actual game references? So there were a ton of Minecraft references. I mean, obviously, they're playing in Minecraft. There were a lot of really funny moments, like when they're in the minecarts, but they stop before getting to the next powered rails, so Garrett has to jump out and push them. They slow down and go at a snail's pace, but the moment that they touch the powered rail, immediately zoom out of there. I laughed when Natalie tries to make a boat, but just throws a piece of wood into the river because they don't know how to craft yet. And when they were trying to craft, Garrett throws a bunch of iron on the table to try and make a cool sword, but accidentally just makes 2 buckets attached to a chain and calls them bucket chucks. Wait, that's not in Minecraft. So it turns out that this version of Minecraft is a bit odd. It seems like there's a mix between classic Minecraft, Minecraft Dungeons, and a little bit of their own modded Minecraft new items. I think it's really cool to incorporate different items from different versions of Minecraft, but there were a couple of items that didn't really line up and were just new. We've got the 2 items that Garrett and Henry crafted, the bucket chucks and hash brown launcher. There's also the Hermes golem thing that Henry made, and the great hog that just don't exist normally. The entire nether warp potion thing, which also doesn't exist, but it makes sense as a way to let piglins get into the overworld. There's a bit of other new stuff as well that doesn't exactly line up in the game, but I think that's fine. For the most part, it's just classic Minecraft. Also, I feel like the movie was in production and one of their main focuses was the 1.16 Nether update, but it looks like they're playing this game in 1.20. I think that the caves and cliffs and world generation and cherry blossoms indicate that very well. I mean, they could be playing on the latest version, but we don't really have anything that we can use to help us note that. I think 1.20 is like the latest that we can have a definitive item or thing in the game that shows us that. Some parts didn't really make sense / weren't canonically accurate to the game of Minecraft, which I know the director announced, but it's still something I have to point out. First off, zombies don't attack sheep. The scene where the sheep is mauled just doesn't really make sense. On that note, some of the people are talking about all of the pink sheeps and how it's supposed to be really rare, but if Steve just dyed a bunch of sheep pink when building all the stuff like that, like his pink house, then the sheep would just stay that way, so there's not really a problem with that. Also, on the first night, Henry makes wooden stairs, which doesn't make sense because you need a crafting table to make stairs, but it's just another one of those things that's like slightly inaccurate. Next, when you make Steve's lava chicken, how does this cooked chicken not burn in the lava? He pours straight lava on top of the chicken and the items just survive. Also, how did Steve get elytras when he's never been to the end to find an end city? I mean, the first time he goes to the nether, he's captured. So unless he got really lucky and found a fully completed portal, which I'm gonna be honest, given the RNG of the characters in the movie, I wouldn't really be surprised. Also, seasoned Minecraft veterans know that killing babies never drops loot. And the piglins definitely don't drop raw beef. The Woodland Mansion didn't really make sense. Steve's acting like the mobs spawn on separate floors with the Vindicators at the bottom, Evokers on the second floor, and Endermen on the top floor, but this is just not really true. But also they just skipped over the Evokers completely. I really wanted to see a couple of Vexes like chase them down at the mansion or something, or see them struggle with the Evoker magic, but whatever. I think it would also work really well if they killed an Evoker so that Garrett could get a Totem of Undying so that it actually makes sense when he lives the giant explosion, or he could have just picked up the totem from Steve's chest that he goes through earlier in the movie when he uses the Ender Pearl. Also, the line of redstone that they used to blow up the TNT before the epic final battle looked like it was way more than 15 blocks long without a repeater. I mean, little touches like that would be a great addition to say, hey, we know what we're doing. Just get like one hardcore fan to watch the movie and point out inaccuracies to the game. This could add little details that show just how much you care, but who knows if the directors actually care. I mean, Jack Black played a bunch of Minecraft, apparently over 100 hours, so it turns out that he really cares. I'm sure there are more inaccuracies, but these are the notable ones that I remembered. Quick side note with Jack Black, I know they had to give him some songs because he always gets a song in these movies. I think his songs were actually really good. I also really enjoyed the other songs in the movie, and I added some of them, including Zero to Hero, to my playlist. And the iconic C418 Minecraft song in the movie and the choir joining in just felt amazing and really transported me back to my childhood. Now, let's talk about the acting. Jack Black and Jason Momoa were really goofy throughout the movie, but could also be serious when the scene needed it. I feel like some of the line delivery was a bit off with some of the actors and actresses, but sometimes it's tough to say whether that's from bad writing, bad direction, or if they just didn't perform it well. Overall, I think the acting was alright, but there were definitely some parts that could have been better. As a whole, I really enjoyed the Minecraft movie. It wasn't one of my favorites, but I'd give it a solid 7 out of 10. At the end of the day, Minecraft is a game about imagination, creation, and just having fun. I feel like the movie resembles this perfectly. It's about people who pursue creativity, originality, and adventure. And that's what Minecraft's all about. Just having fun in whatever way you want. And that's beautiful.